sense of humor. Movie 1 is good, movie 2 is bad. Movie 1 did a great job. Movie 2, his philosophy was, and then he found that he made a mistake in movie 2. But movie 2 said, well, once you get to where you need to be, you can just start eating whatever you want to eat in moderation. Well, moderation's good, but you just don't want to eat whatever you want to eat. Do we want to eat brains and eggs? Brains, like cow brains and pig brains? Do they eat that here? Oh, some say yes, some say no. That used to be huge in Appalachia, in the South. Brains and eggs for breakfast. I've seen people, they fry brains like bacon. I've seen people fight over pig brains. Brains, if you want a good dose of cholesterol, eat brains. Brains are great on cholesterol. And so Joe was wrong on that. Shrimp. Shrimp is another very high cholesterol. And so he found, and then what happened to Joe? He started gaining weight again. And then he says, well, if you gain weight again, just go back to video 1 and you can do my reboot. Well, then that makes him money, doing his reboot program. Just stay, when you get better where you belong to. I like Cornell University. And so what I use is a restoring program, whether it's for cardiovascular disease or for diabetes. I use a 2-step process. And that is restoring and then maintenance. Restoring a piece of furniture. You're going to take a piece of, sandpaper, and you're going to, clean that furniture down, that fine grit. Or if you're working on an old 1957 Chevy, you're going to take a grinder to it. You're going to put Bondo, Tiger Paw, whatever you're going to do, sand it more. You're going to be a little rough on it. You usually don't use sandpaper on your car, but you're going to use sandpaper when you're refurbishing a car or a piece of furniture. Once it gets to where it belongs and you put that finish on it, you put the last bit of paint on it, you don't take sandpapers to it again. You just do a maintenance program. So the Duke program is the sandpaper program where you're refurbishing. The Cornell University is the maintenance program. And that's what Mary Lou and I have been on for now 25 years, the Cornell diet. So the Duke program is a refurbishing program. Or the juicing program is a refurbishing program. Whether you're doing the brown rice and the fruit, the salad and the fruit and the brown rice, whether you're doing the exercise, you're doing the water, you're getting to bed on time, trusting in God, that is the restoring program. So it's a little tougher during that time, just like it's a little tougher on the metal if you're taking sandpaper or grinder to it. But once you get to where you belong, then I go to Cornell University. And the Cornell University is a whole food, plant-based diet with variety. And you say, Walt, isn't a plant-based diet good enough? Well, you answer it. Fruit Loops or plant-based diet. Oreos or plant-based diet. And so it needs to be a whole food, plant-based diet. But then we're learning more and more from Cornell. And I'm seeing Harvard talk about it. I'm seeing Mayo Clinic talking about it. You need variety. Not just same old like dog food. You want variety of food. Not only for the nutrition, but also for what the gut needs. We're learning more and more that the gut biome needs a wide spectrum of good, healthy food to keep that gut working well. So that whole food, plant-based with variety is very important. You're still doing the exercise. You're still doing the water. You're still going to bed on time. Those are just physiology that we learn in those 8 laws of health. You're still trusting in God. It's just the diet component, the fuel component, the nutrition component changed from a restoring program to a maintenance program. Now, how long do you stay with diabetes on the restoring program? You stay on there until you're at ideal body weight, number one. The last time I went to Africa, I may have mentioned this last night. I don't remember. The last time I went to Africa, I had a lady come in. Her glucose was at 400. She was on insulin, metformin. And in 2 weeks, her glucose, she was off insulin, she was off metformin, and her glucose was 115 in 2 weeks doing the Duke program. The time before I was in Africa, there's a lady came in. She was at that 400 area. She was on insulin, she was on metformin. And in 2 weeks, 14 days, she was at 124. Now, had we reversed the diabetes? No. Because we were managing it through the maintenance, the restoring program. We had to get her to ideal body weight to reverse the type 2 diabetes. We were just managing it, and I don't want to just manage it. I want to get rid of it. And so you stay on the Duke program until you get to ideal body weight, until you're looking for a BMI of 23. You also stay on it until you have an A1C, 5.6 or less. You stay on it until you have a fasting blood sugar of 99 or less. And you stay on it until you are no longer on any medication. At that point, when you meet those 4 items, then you can then graduate to the Cornell diet, which is the maintenance program. Now the question is, Walt, I'm on medication. What do I do? Well, what you do is, as we talked about blood pressure, glucose, you're going to see your glucose coming down as you take your blood sugar every day. And as that glucose comes down, if it starts getting lower, you call your healthcare provider and say, Doc Smith, I'm doing the Duke program for diabetes, and my blood sugar is now 102. What do you want me to do? Well, let's see how you do. Doc, my blood sugar is down to 92. Well, let's see how you're doing. Well, Doc, it's down to 84. Well, he's probably going to cut back on your medication. He probably will do it before it even gets there. If you know sliding scale, then just do it yourself, because they've taught you how to do it with sliding scale. The lower the blood sugar, the less medication you use. And they've already taught you how to do that. But work with your healthcare provider on that. You will find yourself off the medication, doing well, before usually you will find yourself at ideal body weight. Now, normally what I also do, if you've ever, how many of y'all have done my January program? Anybody done my January program? We've got one. You will notice, did you do the water fast for 3 days? I'll do a 3-day water fast. Dr. Agatha will have some folks do a 5-day water fast. We see over a 98% reversal rate. And I said, Dr. Agatha, I want the other 1-point-something%. What do I do? She said, fast them for 5 days, and you'll get even a better results. But Walt, I'm on medication. What do I do? Well, normally, if you're on insulin, you'll want to work with somebody that you know if you're doing a 5-day. But on the 3-day, if you know they've taught you sliding scale, then you'll... Type 2 diabetes is not low blood sugar. Or shall I say low blood sugar is not diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Low blood sugar, if you have type 2 diabetes, is because you've taken too much medication for the amount of food you've eaten, or you've not eaten enough food for the amount of medication you've taken. It's the same thing, but just looked at both ways. So the reason you take that much insulin or that much metformin or whatever you're on is based on what you're eating. I have people tell me it's not a problem. I don't need to do your program because my medication's doing fine. If I eat an extra donut, I just take extra medicine. And so as you cut down, if you do a fast, a 3-day fast, then usually we'll see the folks on insulin, they may stop the insulin for those couple days or take significantly less as they do the sliding scale. or work with somebody who knows what they're doing. If you're scared, don't do the 3-day water fast. Now, when I went to the Lifestyle Center, I had just come from regular health care. And I get there, and they're only feeding the patients breakfast and dinner being the noon meal. So I'm the director. I go in and I tell the physicians, you can't do this. And they said, why? They started playing with me. Why can't we do this? Well, it's against the standard of practice. The American Dietetic Association says you've got to have breakfast, mid-morning snack, dinner, mid-afternoon snack, supper, and an HS snack. And then they asked me one more question, and I walked out. They said, how many diabetics do you reverse where you come from? I walked out. 0. I still wasn't convinced. Yes, our numbers were there. Over 98% reversal rate. But I was so indoctrined, so brainwashed, I was having a hard time. So I went to my office and I called Dr. Agatha. I said, Dr. Agatha, these folks here, they're only serving breakfast and dinner. They're not doing a mid-morning snack, an afternoon snack. They're not doing supper, and they're not doing an HS snack, hour sleep snack. And what did she do? She started laughing. She said, Brother Walt, that's how you reverse diabetes. Type 2, that is. She said, you need, instead of breakfast, means break the fast. Instead of breaking the fast from supper to breakfast, she says, to reverse diabetes effectively, aggressively, you want to break the fast from dinner, the noon meal, to breakfast. And that will reverse it a lot faster. If you want to reverse it even faster, do a 3-day water fast. It's easy if they're on metformin. You can even do a 5-day. But monitor the glucose 3 times a day. If you're concerned, don't do it, or work with someone who knows what they're doing. And so that's important, to only have breakfast and dinner being the noon meal. And that's how we reverse type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is different. You're not producing the insulin. Who's ever watched Simply Raw? Anybody? It's a documentary called Simply Raw. It's worth watching. It's a program by it's down in Arizona, New Mexico, somewhere down there. And Dr. Cousin is the medical director there. And Cousin has found in reversing type 2 diabetes, he just puts his patients on for 30 days, a raw diet, water, exercise, and sleep. Sound kind of familiar, doesn't it? But what is he missing? Trusting God. That's what happens when the rocks cry out. They're missing the trust in God. So Cousins has a very good program on reversing type 2 diabetes. He had a black boy come through, he was in his 30s, who thought he was on type 2, but the diabetes went away. Went back. They actually found out he was a type 1. So it got their attention. It got Cousin's attention. The fellow went to school, he got his doctorate degree, and he started helping other people with type 1 diabetes by going raw. Plumb raw. Now, who remembers Milton Crane? Dr. Milton Crane. He was at Loma Linda. He was a researcher. Remember Crane? Tremendous guy. I miss Crane. Crane and Thrash and Arcilla and those guys would just give you all kinds of information. Well, Crane taught me around 2000. He said, Walt, you can reverse type 1 diabetes if you catch it in the honeymoon period. The problem is kids aren't watched by their parents anymore. They're watched by their school teachers. They're watched by babysitters. They're watched out by other kids when they're playing. Parents don't pay any attention to their kids anymore like they used to. And he said what happens is when they get type 1 diabetes, they're in the honeymoon period, and at that time, Crane was telling me this. He said the honeymoon period is within 12 months of onset. He said, but if you catch it within 12 to 10 months, you have a pretty good chance of reversing it. I said, so what do you do if you catch it at onset? He said, number one is, what is the number one cause of type 1 diabetes? Any idea? Dairy. Yes. At Cornell, I learned from Dr. Campbell that type 1 diabetes reverses type 1 diabetes, that dairy increases the risk of type 1 diabetes by 1,100%. That's significant. And then Crane figured that out at Loma Linda, that diabetes was the number one cause. So he took his patients off. You stop the sandpaper. Stop the dairy. No dairy. Number two, he looked at a study out of New Zealand with using niacinamide. It's a low dose. It's not a high dose at all. It's based, if you go to Google, you type in type 1 diabetes, New Zealand study, niacinamide, you will find how many milligrams per kilogram of weight. And again, it's not high at all. And they found that it was helping in reversing type 1 diabetes. And Crane did one more thing. He said, after they eat, he said, Walt, you're not used to this, but after they eat, exercise them real hard. Those three things, he said, you can reverse type 1 diabetes, especially if you catch it in the first 8 months of onset. And that came out of Loma Linda research. But it's not uncommon when I use the type 2 program with the type 1s, and a type 1 is running 60, 80, 120 units a day. I've seen them go down as much as 5 units. Is that getting rid of it? No, but it's a whole lot better than 120. Even if they were taking 20, it's better than 60 or 80 or 120. So it does affect. There are now, you can look up NIH, and NIH has done research on the adults after the honeymoon period using the niacinamide, and have also found benefit of niacinamide. Niacinamide is a B3 vitamin. You have niacin and you have niacinamide. It's a different type of B3, but niacinamide. Any questions on diabetes? The 3 factors, yes?
Fasting, blood sugar, you listed 4 things.
Okay, so what's the question is, while we're getting the microphone here, what are the factors for type 2 diabetes?
I think that was it.
Yes. For that receptor, number 1 is ideal body weight. Number 2 is clean the fat out of the blood. And that's by stopping oil, dairy, and meat. And number 3 is inflammation, is addressing inflammation. And that's a hard one, y'all. Yes, we can. And so what Kempner did is, number 1, there was no processed foods. It was only his rice diet and the fruit and the vegetables. But also sleep deprivation will cause, as we learned in cardiovascular. But there's other things that cause inflammation. And so you want to address those issues that cause inflammation. Yes, sir.
I think when you were mentioning getting off of type 2, that you keep doing something until...
Ideal body weight, BMI of 23 or less, and your A1C of 5.6 or less, and your fasting blood sugar of 99 or less.
Correct. There's 4 things. So you stay on the program until there's 4 things you complete. 1 is ideal body weight. As she said, she got you got your A1C, which is an average over a 3-month period. So it's going to take a little while to get the A1C down. You want the A1C of 5.6 or less. You got that morning fasting of 99 or less, and then you're not using any medications. Oh, that may be the 4 that you were thinking of. Gotcha. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I've heard that type 1 diabetes could be an autoimmune disease. Have you ever heard that? Or is that, I mean, I know that dairy can cause autoimmune problems. I don't know
Yes.
if it's connected.
We know that the pancreas is not producing the islets. Here's the problem. We're trained one way, and sometimes what you'll find maybe the way we were trained may not be exactly the physiology. But we're taught that what happens is those islet cells, you're getting that dairy, and the body thinks, oh, that's bad stuff. And so then the immune system starts attacking the islet cells in the pancreas. So stopping the dairy can help stop that from happening. So if it is an autoimmune issue, the best thing I have found for autoimmune disease, the best thing is juicing. That's just the best thing I found on any of the autoimmune diseases is to juice. Did I share with y'all about the little gal I think I did last night, about the gal she juiced for 90 days? I didn't share that with y'all. She up in Minnesota. I was in Minnesota doing a camp meeting a year and a half ago, and there was a gal. She's 18 years of age, and she stopped me if I mention this, but I saw her, and she looked like a 80, 90-year-old woman that her mom was having to help her ambulate. I mean, she looked like literally like an old woman. And I went to her mama and I said, what's wrong with her? She said, they don't know. Her mom's a nurse. They took her to all kinds of clinics. They even took her to Mayo Clinic down in Rochester. And Mayo Clinic said, we have no idea that she's going to be an invalid the rest of her life. And she's 18 years old. And I've known this girl for 10 years. A farm family. This girl has boom energy. I mean, I would love to have this girl's energy. She couldn't even walk on her own. And so we had a break, and her mom and her dad and her sister, we sat down and we prayed. God, what do we need to do for this girl? I mean, Mayo says she's going to be an invalid for the rest of her life. There's no guy want her acting like a 90-year-old woman at 18 years old. Her quality of life. And I was impressed. And I said, have you thought about juicing? And Mom said, well, I thought about that. And I said, well, pray about it. So they went home and they prayed, and I encouraged them to do 60 days. And I didn't hear anything. And then 9 months later, 9 months later, I saw her. Boom, she was all over the place. She worked for Uchi. This happened. She went home, and she was able to go back to work. She's all okay. And I saw her out there, and I said to her, what happened? And she said, well, we prayed, and we talked about juicing. We went home and we prayed more, and my mama decided to juice with me. And we decided we were impressed to not do it 60 days, but do it 90 days. So we juiced only for 90 days. And she says, I got better. She said, then I started adding food back, and boom, I was back again. So I stopped, assessed what I had eaten, started juicing again, tried again, boom. Okay, that doesn't work. So she started juicing again, try something else, and going along, and boom. Well, every time she collapsed, it was based on one item of food, but in different ways, whether it was in an oil or in a food product. It was soy. Soybean oil or any kind of soy products. She collapsed each time. She says, I read labels well. She can't go out to eat at a restaurant unless she's eating salad or something that she definitely knows. She says, as long as I do that. And it's called the elimination program, where you go in, you try it, and in science, you try something, it doesn't work, you go back, well, let's try it again. You try it again. Nope, don't work. It did it twice. And so that's what she did and kept adding. She's able to add everything back except any soy products. It's amazing. For lupus, the best thing I have found for lupus is juicing, because processed food is one of the two things. Processed food and stress are some of the fastest ways to get a lupus flare. And when that person does a 60-day juice fast, and then they come off the juice fast and go to a whole food plant-based diet with variety, stopping all processed foods. Processed foods are an enemy to lupus patients. Wheat can cause problems. Why? The European wheat has 14 chromosomes. Our wheat has 42 chromosomes. Plus, we spray it with Roundup. That causes problems with a lot of people from an inflammation standpoint, whether it's arthritis. Dr. Agatha, she taught me whether it was psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, whether it was arthritis. She said, Brother Walt, she says, one wheat cracker will kick on psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, and arthritis for 2 to 2.5 months by eating one cracker. It can do that. And she says it can take 3 to 4 months of being plumb off of any wheat to get it plumb out of your body. Is it the bread problem? Is it the wheat problem? No, it's not. It's our problem. There's an interpreter that I use in Africa. He used to be the minister of agriculture. I was doing a program. He was interpreting me. And I pled to them. Every time I go, I plead to them, do not, super hybridize your food. Do not use Roundup. Do not use Roundup Ready. And the guy stopped translating the first time I said this. And he looked at me and he said, does America use Roundup? I said, unfortunately it does. He said, we outlawed that years ago in Rwanda. It's poison. We may see some changes shortly on that issue, we've been told. Any other questions?
Well, maybe she answered it for me, but when you're talking about the breakfast and the dinner, lunch, how late is the lunch? That's what I call it anyway.
Okay.
Is it, she was saying 2:30 or 3. Was
Yes.
that because the mitochondria?
Yes, and also the aspect of the metabolism.
Okay.
Yes.
And then breakfast is?
Remember, if you don't eat breakfast within 2 hours of waking, you increase your risk of a heart attack or a stroke by 150%.
All right. Thanks.
So something that hasn't been mentioned, but I was just wondering, what do you think about artificial sweeteners?
I wouldn't recommend them. I encourage stevia, but I encourage stevia that's the herb. Has anybody ever used the herb stevia? Just the herb? Not the white stuff, just the herb. It's great. You can make a tea out of it and then use that tea water for, along with something that you cooked. And how many of y'all know Melody Prettyman, Calvinist, with 3ABN? So Melody came one time into our community, and she came to my store, and we were talking, and we have the same language, we have the same tongue. She's from Texas, and she was saying how much she missed sweet tea, or as I say, sweet tea. And I said, Melody, I can fix you some sweet tea. She said, you can? Healthy? I said, sure. And so I fixed her some sweet tea, and what I did is I took a quart of water, brought it to a boil, turned off, and I put a heaping teaspoon of the stevia leaf, cut and sifted. Put it in there. Let it sit for 30 minutes, strained it off, let her taste it. She's got sweet tea again. In the South, folks use sweet tea. They grow up on sweet tea. But stevia is an excellent. But the other guys, I was telling someone today, aspartame. Y'all know what, Tyvek is. You know the stuff you wrap around your house? Or the stuff, the FedEx envelope, that's Tyvek. And the man who invented that was a patient of mine in 2000. He worked for, that was DuPont who invented it. And he worked for them. He invented it there at DuPont. He came in, he had Parkinson's so bad he had to have assistance in ambulation. He was really not doing good at all. And he drank a lot of Coca-Colas that were diet Coca-Colas that had aspartame in it. He was with us for 3 weeks. Parkinson's significantly improved. Significantly. So much that he rented a huge yacht and his family went out into the ocean in the Atlantic. He was able to walk on his own, ambulate on his own. But no, I'm not a fan of sweeteners. Artificial.
What about organic wheat in the U.S.? Is that okay?
So organic wheat is not supposed to have Roundup used on it, but it still can have, usually has, 42 chromosomes. And even though you might even buy einkorn wheat, Mary Lou bought twice einkorn wheat. Both said that they were 16 chromosomes. The one batch I sent it to UT at Knoxville to test it, it was 42 chromosomes. And it was marketed as 16 chromosomes. The other batch I sent up north to a lab and they tested it 14 or 16 chromosomes they were. It was not the 42 chromosomes. And I asked both labs why, when they sold it to me at that, it was 42. They said they probably didn't know because of cross-pollination. And it tainted it. And so you want to make sure that it's like, you can buy a einkorn out of Italy. It is called jovial wheat. And that is 14 chromosomes, according to them. Yes?
So just curious, if you got a hold of some of those wheat berries and planted some of that wheat here, would cross-pollination locally then still make it 42 chromosomes then?
If it's cross-pollinated. That's a good question. What is it? I called a university. I called all around. And I was told that you want to be at probably 2 miles away for wheat. Yes, ma'am.
What about sprouted wheat?
Sprouted wheat is going to be better for you, but still it has the 42 chromosomes. And if it's been sprayed with Roundup, it still has Roundup.
Do you think if you were raising wheat in like a greenhouse situation, it might eliminate the cross-pollination?
You would, just the problem's having enough of it. There was a book I talked about this morning. I wish I had it here, and I don't have my phone. I left my phone back at the house that I stayed last night. But read the book Temperance. Satan is sitting there trying to figure out what he would do if you want to hurt somebody, how do you hurt them? Hurt their kids. So he's trying to figure out how to hurt. This is in the book Temperance. I forgot page 12 or somewhere in there. But read it when you go home. And he's trying to figure out what to do. What to do. And he's working with all his angels. And finally, Satan himself comes up with what he's going to do. He's going to address the food. And he even talks about address it. He was going to attack the wheat. Now, people say, well, he's talking about alcohol there. True. But could he address the wheat and hurt God's kids? Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question from the audience. This is not directly related to our topic, but important. So a man in his 50s is having difficulty with urination. The flow seems very slow at times, sometimes blocked altogether. This is not a prostate issue. The bladder doesn't seem to fully empty. They often get up once or twice a night. They eat plant-based, mostly whole food, have a low BMI, a sedentary job, but try to exercise daily and drink lots of water. Any recommendations?
So if it's not prostate, have they identified through diagnostics any other cause? He doesn't have IC, interstitial cystitis. He doesn't. Is there anything else going on there?
Not sure.
Do you know what his prostate? I mean, what his PSA is? PSA is. And it's not at all. The prostate is not at all swollen.
He doesn't think it's a prostate issue.
Okay. I would encourage him to get a PSA. Now, a PSA is not a diagnostic tool. It's a trending tool. We've messed with it and may now say it's a diagnostic. It's not. It was intended to be a trending. Have him try this. It's worth a try. Have him try Podiarco, 2 mLs, and once a day to 3 times a day based on acuity. Have him try black seed oil, one teaspoon twice a day. Has he had an exam?
I don't know.
We don't know. So there's an old treatment that men did years ago. And if there's not cancer, if there's not bleeding, what they can do is, and Dr. Agatha taught me this, is you put on a pair of gloves and then you will do like a rectal, exam, a digital exam. And you go up to about this knuckle, right, the second knuckle, and he goes in and he feels. And he feels if it is hard or soft. Now, that's soft. That's harder. Soft, harder. And he goes up to where he feels that, and he massages it. He does not go forward and backwards. He goes sideways, leg to leg. And he massages it for about 5 minutes. You can do 10 minutes. And you can do that 3 times a day. And he can try that for, a couple weeks and see if that helps to massage the prostate. Now, we know that it's called milking the prostate. Now, if you do that and then check a PSA, we're told that the PSA can be higher because you milk the prostate. Now, a regular bowel movement 3 times a day actually milks the prostate. That's one of the reasons men need to have 3 bowel movements a day. It milks our prostate. That pressure against that, if it's not a loose stool. But those are some things I would try.
Thank you.
If a person has, say, IC, interstitial cystitis, or if a person has a UTI, or if a person has honeymoon syndrome, the best thing I have found is D-mannose. And D-mannose is it's very concentrated, either cranberries or blueberries. And the way it works like a magnet. And it goes into the urinary tract, and it collects the pathogens, usually E. coli. But it collects the pathogens, and then you force fluid and you urinate out the dump truck that you just filled with the pathogen. And you do 1 heaping teaspoon, not capsules, it's not enough. 1 heaping teaspoon, every waking 2 hours. Every 2 hours that you're awake. If you wake up in the middle of the night, do more. What's prescribed on the bottle is just not aggressive enough. And it's ladies who have taught me to do this that works best for them. And so, 1 heaping teaspoon, Q2 waking hours, and then you force fluids. If you don't force fluids, it sits there, they eat that stuff up, and more birthday coming and cake in 2 hours. And so you got to force fluids. And that works quite well. It's very rare that doesn't work. If it doesn't, I'll add Alimed to that. But normally that works for any of the UTIs, IC, or honeymoon syndrome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, one more question about the wheat. What about, we use a particular kind that's labeled as non-GMO. Do you think that's legitimate, or?
It could be, but non-GMO means that, well, let me back up. Wheat is not GMO. So it's not GMO. All wheat is non-GMO, I'm told.
Okay.
It's super hybridized.
Isn't that GMO?
So it's not, I'm told that they don't genetically, they don't use that word for wheat, I'm told. So it could be just a marketing thing.
Okay.
So I double check that. I would check if it's been hybridized or if it's had any Roundup. And I might be ignorant in that, but that's what I've had multiple sources tell me.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
What could you tell me about tremors?
Essential tremors?
And intentional, like people who have both.
So let's do the essential tremors first. So the best thing I found for essential tremors, yes, you've got to follow the 8 laws of health. Get your sleep, drink your water, get your exercise, get your sunshine. You've got to get all those guys. But copaiba, C-O-P-I-A-B-A, C-O-P-I-A-B-A. It's an essential oil. Comes out of Brazil. It is the most anti-inflammatory phytochemical that has been identified, to my knowledge, and it works very well for essential tremors. You take 2 to 4 drops twice a day. Sublingual, it's an essential oil. Now, help me understand the intentional tremors. What do you mean it's intentional?
Well, like, sorry, red mic. When you go to pick up something like this book, then your hand is like this.
Okay, got it. I would still say the copaiba. You may also want to try some CBD oil, and you might be afraid. I didn't use CBD oil for 5 years. I'm afraid someone would get stoned on it. I just didn't know any better. I was ignorant. There's CBD oil that has 0 THC in it. There's some CBD oil that is legal and that doesn't. It has just very little. The best that I have found in CBD oil is the original, how they used to make it. They make it different now, and so the older type works a little bit better. But the question is, why does CBD oil work sometimes and sometimes it doesn't? So I called the University of Florida in Gainesville, and they've done a lot. They do a lot of research in CBD. So let's say you're B12, which I'll clarify may not be the best illustration based on new knowledge. But on current knowledge of what we've known, if your B12 is 1,300, is it going to help you taking more B12? It's already up where it belongs. The same thing with CBD because it affects the cannabinoids. And if you already have an adequate source of cannabinoids and your body's producing that proper amount of cannabinoids, CBD oil is not going to help you. The copaiba may not even help you because both of them help to address the cannabinoids. Now let me clarify myself on the B12. There's new research coming out of California and out of Europe that's saying that the blood level of B12 is not fully accurate. It needs to be a cellular level. And I asked a friend of mine who's a lab technician who works at the hospital in the lab. I asked him if that made any sense, and he thought about it. He goes, yeah, that does make sense. His hospital is not doing the cellular level, but he said yes, a cellular level of B12 is going to be much more accurate than a blood level, because the blood level cannot be as accurate. So we're going to see a change possibly down the road, just like we've seen a change in magnesium. We used to do a magnesium blood serum for magnesium. Now a lot of the hospitals don't do serums; they're doing an RBC, because the majority of your magnesium is in the RBC. Only 1.5% to 2% of your magnesium is in the serum, and so it's more accurate in the RBC. So we'll see that possibly change in the vitamin B12.
So would those two things take away the problem, or will it just cover up the symptom?
It's probably going to treat the symptom. It's probably not going to heal. I would also look at B complex, because B complex is significant for helping nerves, especially your 5 and 6. I would look at magnesium, and then also I'd look at lithium orotate. Does the person find it more prone when they're stressed? Okay, that makes sense. So that's where the B complex, the lithium, and the magnesium is going to come in and be beneficial. It's going to supply what your body needs. PO, by mouth, yeah. You're welcome.
Yes. Do you have any recommendations for somebody who might have MTHFR?
That's a tough one. MTHFR. Yeah, MTHFR. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. First thing I recommend is getting a blood work and doing a chromosome test to see what chromosome you're dealing with. Second, I would go into someone that knows good blood testing testing for allergens, food allergens. I'm finding that food can be a huge issue for MTHFR. And I have a friend who, if she eats a tomato, I mean, her face is blown up. If she eats watermelon, I mean, she's in terrible shape. And so you want to find out which of those foods can be a problem. And then you're looking at the methylated Bs. They can't assimilate your cynos and your Bs. They've got to be a methylated B. I don't know of one yet, but I do know, as the folks I work with, when they apply the laws of health and they eat a whole food plant-based diet with variety, they get their exercise, they get their sleep, and then they identify those foods that are causative, that they significantly improve. Yes?
So I'd like you to just address for a minute what we call type 3 diabetes, which is dementia, because I have worked with a number of older folks, and we can make progress. I've made progress with some people and slowed it, but I'd really like to be able to reverse it.
Absolutely. In 1985, I did a study on Alzheimer's. And we took almost 40 patients. I forgot how many exactly it was, but it was almost 40 patients that were feeder patients. And to make extra money in healthcare administration, you're always looking at ancillary revenue, added ancillary revenue. And so we were in West Palm Beach, and I had an area that we were not using it at the center that we were at, the healthcare institute I was working at. And so I did an adult daycare. And so we had a lot of rich people there in West Palm that would bring their moms and dads. And we would average in that upper 30 patients that were feeder patients. I didn't know any of this stuff back then. But I'd read about trying two things, and I tried it. In 3 months, every patient could feed themselves. and that was marked. And we did two things. We stimulated long-term memory like Jeopardy-type questions. Now, this is in 1985, so it tells you most of these people were born around the turn of the century. And so we talked about things in the teens, World War I, the Roaring '20s, and we constantly did Jeopardy-type questions in that era and when they were in their teens and 20s. The other thing we did is we got these, you know those things that Tupperware has that you open up and shake out, put the little squares and whatever in, circles? I had them using, everybody had one. And they were constantly, all day long, putting those in there, putting those in there. Those are the two things we did. Before I came back home 21 years ago, I had a lady in Virginia. She was a school teacher, retired school teacher. She was in her 70s. And if you said, Mrs. Jones, isn't it a beautiful day outside? You could see eye recognition. She understood what you were saying. She would start to talk. She would get one, maybe a half a word out. She lost it. But usually she could get one good word out, and then she didn't get two. She had problems in ambulation. She had to have assistance with ambulation. And so what we did is we juiced her for 18 days. Now, this is what happened in 18 days. We juiced her. We put her on a mini trampoline 3 times a day. We walked her 4 times a day. At first with assistance in rebounding because of balance. At the end, and then we also did hydrotherapy, just basic hydrotherapy. We might have done ginkgo. I'm not sure if we did ginkgo biloba or not, but we probably did ginkgo. At the end of the 3 weeks, the lady could communicate 2 sentences. She could ambulate on her own, and her balance significantly improved. And in just 3 weeks. I don't know what happened. She left. It was a lifestyle center, so I don't know if she continued improvement. The American Alzheimer's Disease Association has a website, and on the website they used to talk about blueberries. And I have seen where blueberry juice has improved, or has stopped and seen improvement. They did a study on mice, and they took mice and they gave them blueberries. They did 2 groups, a control group and a blueberry group. The regular group, they fed them mice food for 2 years. And as the adolescents started moving into adulthood, into geriatrics, their progress in the maze significantly decreased. But the mice on 2 years that had blueberries from the very beginning, even into their geriatric years, had no decline in the maze. That's marked. That's good. There's a physician who her husband got Alzheimer's. Now, this is very difficult for me because as you look at the PS ratio, the polyunsaturated divided by the saturated, coconut oil is like 0.04 or something like that. You want at least 2.0 for cardiac. And so we were taught so many years, stay away from coconut oil. About 25 years ago, we started seeing that change. And I said, well, proof's in the pudding. We're going to start seeing problems with cardiac. We're not. It's a medium chain oil. Well, what this physician did is she started giving her husband 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, of extra virgin cold pressed coconut oil 3 times a day. She claims it reversed his dementia. I don't know. So those are some things that I use for dementia.
So just as an illustration, one of the things that I found really helpful is music. So I had a 95-year-old school teacher. She was almost retirement age when I went into grade school, but she ended up in a local nursing home here, and I would go in to see her with my 2 little boys, and she would not know me from Adam. But if I sang one song, Jesus Loves Me, Old Rugged Cross, any of that, she would know exactly who I was, who my siblings were, exactly where we had been. All of that information could come back.
Yes.
Because music stimulates the whole brain. So I've used a lot of music. I use music with all of my clients.
Yeah, music therapy is amazing. If you lose an Alzheimer's patient and they walk out, when they walk out the door, they just forgot they walked out that door. And usually they fixate on something and they go that direction. And as you look at lost person behavior, which is, many, many thousand cases of people who have been lost, as you look at the dementia patient, that patient, the majority, high majority, don't go this way, that way. They stay targeted on what they're looking at. And so if you can get that first path going and what they're going towards, that's where you go to find them. Any other questions? Yes?
How do I increase kidney function?
So kidney function, thank you. So on kidney function, what you're doing is the best thing I have found in addressing renal failure, doing the Duke diet, the fruit, the brown rice, the salad, the brown rice, the exercise 4 times a day. That's very important. The water, being asleep by 9 o'clock, the corn silk, whether you're doing a tea or an extract, the dandelion root tea or extract, the CoQ10 4 times a day, 100 milligrams, and then the 3 capsules activated charcoal twice a day. That's what we've seen the most. Now, again, everything is done with prayer.
Is there anything you can do for non-diabetic neuropathy?
Yes. The best thing that I have found for peripheral neuropathy is something called, it's by a company called Terry Naturally. Terry Naturally. It's guaranteed 100% to work or you get your money back. And it's just some, it's natural. Do you do 2 caps in the morning, 2 caps in the evening? I haven't found a way to plumb reverse it, because when that person who takes the Healthy Feet and Nerves, they get better and they go, oh, it's reversed, and they quit taking it, it comes back. And then they have to deal with it because it takes about 3 to 4 days to kick in and start working. You can use hydrotherapy, warm and cool. Be careful with hot and cold with neuropathy because you don't have that. You can damage the tissue. And so you do warm and cool. Textbook is say 103 degrees, 102 degrees. If it's really bad, don't go over 100 degrees. You're totally safe at 100 degrees. And no colder than 70 degrees. 3 minutes warm, 1 minute cool. 3 minutes warm, 1 minute cool, 7 times, twice a day. You're going to increase vascular flow. But the best thing I have, and another one that can help, is magnesium oil. Magnesium oil I've found to also help with neuropathy. And you can rub that on that area, and that can also be very beneficial.
So when she brought up MTHFR, it actually triggered something in my thyroid, actually.
You're seeing a correlation between the two?
Well, my mom had Hashimoto's. My sister, I believe, has Hashimoto's. I've never been diagnosed with it. My daughter is now having issues with being cold and running low. I run low body temperature and have for a long time. Whenever I have my blood levels checked, my thyroid and reverse T3, T4, everything's always perfect.
What about your antibodies?
They've, everything's been checked. It's normal.
Okay.
I'm always in the normal range. But they always checked it before because I was morbidly obese. So let's check your thyroid. They did check my MTHFR levels, but that was due to the fact that I had a pulmonary embolism, bilateral pulmonary embolism, and almost died. And that also runs in the family. My mom had blood clotting issues. My sister has blood clotting issues. My maternal cousin has blood clotting issues. So we just assumed, even though we all, when checked, don't have the markers for that. I realize that not all genes are known. We're always coming up normal in the thyroid, in the blood levels. And I'm so tired of hearing that everything's normal when it is obvious that there's obviously something that's not normal. And now my daughter is starting to be affected by apparently the same issues. She does not have a weight gain issue, but actually since she had her last baby and now her body temperature is not rising up anymore, she struggles now to get the body weight down again too. And I think it's just hitting her. It took longer for that than it did, I've struggled it with my whole life. Is there something that can be taken to stimulate the thyroid naturally? And I mean, obviously there's something that isn't quite normal, even though it says it's normal.
Two problems. One, normal is based on the average population. I had 5 patients come in with a low white count in the low 3. Called Dr. Agatha. I said, Dr. Agatha, I've got 5 patients in with a white count flirting with 3. She said, Brother Walt, are they total vegetarians? I said, yes, ma'am. How'd you know? She says, well, look at it like this. Let's say that let's say it's World War II, and you're in Germany, and you're in their Royal Air Force, and bombers come over, you get up, you dogfight, and then they go back, and you come back down, you land, you wait on them to come across again. And then when radar picks them up, coming across, you go back up, and you dogfight again, come back down. When people eat meat, when people eat dairy, which is the average people, white cells go up and dogfight. She says, but these people ain't dogfighting. They're down at the, they're total vegetarians. They're not eating meat. They're not eating dairy. So as we look at labs, you've got to look, are we the normal person? That's one thing. I don't think that's in your situation. But that's where one of the problems with labs. The other problem is so you got TSH, T3, T4, free T3, free T3, free T4, the antibodies. But what if there's another lab they could draw that it identifies out of, here you're looking at, those different ones, those 6, but what if there's a 7th or an 8th one that we just haven't found yet that would be, and that one would show it. So just because you don't know it doesn't mean it's not. You know what I'm saying? So the way to attack that I found to be most successful is if you feel that it's your thyroid, then give your thyroid everything you can give right now. And here's what the thyroid, how to address that. Number 1, you stop 4 things. You stop 4 things. You stop chlorine, you stop fluoride, and you stop bromide. Fluoride, chlorine, and bromide, they're smaller, they're above they're higher than iodine on the periodic table, and they can prevent the thyroid from absorbing iodine. And so you don't want to have water with chlorine in it, you don't want to have water with fluoride in it, you don't want to have fluoride toothpaste, and bromide is a dough enhancer, a dough preservative, it's in soft drinks, it's in all kinds of food. You don't want any of those 3. And then there's more and more folks now talking about the effects of the American wheat on thyroid function. And so the recommendation now is for people with thyroid issues, go gluten-free. Now, I said something that I don't know if I totally believe. I don't know if I believe it's the gluten issue. I believe it's the chromosome issue. I believe it's the hybridization issue. But people say gluten-free because that's just easier to understand. So those are the 4 no's. But the things that your thyroid does need, it needs iodine. Now, how much iodine? You know that you're not hyperthyroid, and so you don't have to worry about that. If you're hyperthyroid, where it's below 0.4, now they're saying below 3.5. If you're hyperthyroid, then you want to be cautious in taking iodine, but you're not. And so your thyroid needs iodine, so taking 12.5 milligrams is good. The average Japanese woman consumes 13.7 milligrams of iodine a day. The average American woman consumes 0.125 milligrams of iodine a day. What does that do? Well, it can affect their thyroid function. It makes them significantly more at risk for breast cancer, tender breast syndrome. And this is so cool, so cool. They found in American research you can increase the child's IQ 10 to 15 points above the mother's IQ. In Germany, they're repeating the study at a higher dose, and they're finding even better results in these early stages. Too early to really tell yet. But what they do is the mother, when she's pregnant, especially the first 2 trimesters, just like you would folic acid, you're taking 12.5 milligrams of iodine, do that the full pregnancy, and then when you start nursing, you go to 25 milligrams of iodine. When the baby can start chewing, you go to 3.125 milligrams. And on average, the baby's IQ is 10 to 15 points above the mother's IQ. And not only that, they're getting menses. That's geniuses. It's amazing. So back to the thyroid. The thyroid needs iodine. Taking 12.5 is, even if you just took it to prevent breast cancer, it's worth it. But for your thyroid function, iodine also improves brain function. Iodine improves your immune system. We heard that talked about during COVID. The next thing is you need selenium, 200 to 400 micrograms of selenium. Now you can get that in say 2, 3, maybe 4 Brazil nuts, or you can take the selenium. You need zinc. Now men are more prone to lose zinc than women, but you need zinc for thyroid function. And you're wanting somewhere around 30 to 50 milligrams. But if you get it flirting up in that 40, 50 milligrams, add 3 to 5 milligrams of copper, because zinc lowers copper. Zinc lowers copper. And so you want to supplement. And there's some things that have zinc, selenium, and copper all together. And then you want L-tyrosine. L-tyrosine. It's an amino acid, T-Y-R-O-S-I-N. I don't know. Y'all know I can't spell. L-tyrosine. And so L-tyrosine is something very important for thyroid function. The next thing that is huge on thyroid is the adrenals. Stress blows the adrenals. Take an invoice of your level of stress. If you're a stressed person, there's a good chance you're blowing your adrenals. You've got to protect those adrenals. That's going to affect your female hormones. It's going to affect your thyroid and a lot of stuff. And so if you want to protect that thyroid, if you think you've got a thyroid issue but current lab work's not picking it up, do everything you can boost it. There's one here.
On this same topic, you said the L-tyrosine, but you didn't say how much.
L-tyrosine, a person who has hypothyroidism, they're looking at 500 to 1,000. I'm finding 1,000 works better. Milligrams. A question there, yeah.
Speaking of adrenals, is there any way to help somebody who has congenital adrenal hypertrophy?
The best support I have found for the adrenals, nettle tea is very good. Y'all have nettle growing here? Okay, good. Nettle is, They tell us that nettle is the most nutritious herb in North America. It's phenomenal. Nettle is excellent for the adrenals. That's why we use nettle for female hormones, because it helps the adrenals. How much? You can take a quart of water, bring it to a boil, turn it off, make an infusion. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And you're going to use a quarter of a cup. You can use a half a cup, but anywhere between a quarter, usually a quarter of a cup's enough. And the other thing is there's a company, I forgot who it's from, but it's called Adrena Sense, all one word, ADRENA-SENSE. I think it's Natural Factors. And they have, it's a supplement that has just a bunch of herbs in it, like ashwagandha and different things in it. And that works extremely well. It's probably the best thing I have found for helping with the adrenals. Yeah. And then you don't want to do things that take it down. The biggest thing I find takes it down is stress. Any other questions? That's what I'm here for, y'all.
Is there anything special to help the thymus gland?
I don't know how to do that yet. I would look at lifestyle, but I don't know specifically how to improve that yet.
What about early morning awakening issues, like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
Okay. No problem going to sleep. For going to sleep, the best thing I found is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha works. She has a question again there.
No, can go to sleep at the drop of a hat.
Yes, that's like my wife. I don't know if she even, there's sometimes I think she falls asleep before she even hits the pillow. Literally, I mean, she starts falling asleep when she starts laying down. Literally, she does. But for staying asleep, the challenge with sleep issues is it's definitely not a cookie cutter, and everyone's different. And what makes it even harder is what may work for the first 2 weeks, kind of like deodorant. You know how some people, they take deodorant and it quits working after a little while and you got to change deodorants? The same thing's true. But here's some things I have found to be beneficial. And you just have to try it out, use specific. We're learning more and more about the melatonin. We know that when we eat a large supper, we don't produce as much melatonin. We know that when we eat a large supper, the food has a propensity to putrefy and ferment if we eat within 3 to 4 hours of laying down. Does that affect our blood? Yes. It can taint the blood with the food putrefying and fermenting, and that then can affect sleep into the night as that blood goes to the brain. So we're not making as much melatonin that way. But also, when you go to sleep at night, and if there's any other color, and I'll clarify because I'm not totally accurate in this statement, but I'll clarify. If there's any other color than than red, it turns down significantly to even turns off the melatonin. So if your clock is blue or green or white, and you wake up and look at it, you can turn off or turn down significantly your melatonin. Now melatonin, if you take melatonin as a supplement, it takes about an hour for it to peak out. And then it's going to stay there for about 3.5 to 4 hours. If you wake up and you look at your iPhone, it has blue light in it, or your iPad. Or if you decide, well, I'm going to let me just look at some emails or some texts, or if you get a ding in the middle of the night, that blue light, which is also blue light in sunshine, can actually turn down your melatonin, thinking it's time to get up. The temperature in the room, well, I won't get to that yet. So the light, any color other than red, will turn it down to turn it off. So you can put like red Christmas bulbs or night lights in the bathroom or whatever, or your clock, you make it go red. But this is cool. I said I made a mistake there. I wasn't totally correct. Sunlight turns off the melatonin. But moonlight does not turn off the melatonin. What is moonlight? It's reflection of sunlight. And it's got the scientists stumped. They can't figure it out. That's a question when we get to heaven. We can ask God all kinds of questions we have for Him. So you can sleep on the top of your house, on the roof, at a full moon, and that full moon will not turn down your melatonin. Isn't that cool? That's a God thing. Now, some other things that can affect that you're waking up. Yes, melatonin may help there. Then there's different things you can use, like L-tryptophan. L-tryptophan, what's that do? Well, that just makes more serotonin. More serotonin makes more melatonin. 5-HTP does the same thing. Some people use L-theanine. L-theanine is an amino acid that can help with falling asleep. There's a combination with something that's called tranquil sleep. And I sell a lot of it. It helps a lot of people. You chew up 2 tablets. I had a girl come in with her boyfriend, and she wasn't into natural. She was into drugs side, but he was more into some natural stuff, some. And so she got L-theanine, or she got this tranquil sleep. He comes back in the next morning, and he wants to report what happened. He said she was afraid of it because she likes drugs, and so she was afraid it would hurt her, so she only chewed up 1. But before she went to bed, she went and got on the toilet to go to the bathroom. She fell asleep on the toilet. He informed me that she would be doing a half of one that night. And I have a veterinarian that comes in. He says one of them puts him flat out and he stays asleep all night. Everybody's different. At 9/11, our patients out of New York City and out of Washington, D.C. were not sleeping. They just couldn't sleep. So I called Dr. Walter Strachan. I've talked about him several times this weekend. So Strachan said, here's what you do. It works every time. It works for ladies whose husband just died and they have hysteria. I mean, they're hysterical about it and they can't sleep, and it works. He said, take 2 tablespoons of valerian powder, 2 tablespoons of skullcap powder, 2 tablespoons of hops powder, and put it to 2 cups of water. That's strong, isn't it? Yeah, that's strong. And he said, it always works. We did it that night. The next morning, everybody reported from New York City and Washington, D.C., it did not work. So I called Strachan back. I said, Strachan, it did not work. He goes, are you serious? He said, okay, let's do it back up 2 hours. Do a full dose 6 o'clock, do a full dose 8 o'clock. That should do it. We did it. It did not work for anybody. He goes, these people are really fractured. And if you knew Strachan, he had such a tender heart. He would cry over something like that. He just felt so bad for people who were being tortured by not able to sleep or health problems. Strachan said, back it up 2 hours, full dose, until it works. You're not going to hurt them. So we did 4, 6, 8. No, 2, and finally 2, 4, 6, 8 is what finally got those people to sleep. It took 6 months before the people out of New York City and Washington, D.C. were able to fall asleep and have good night's sleep as normal because they were just so stressed after 9/11. Only once since then have I had to do the full 2, 4, 6, 8. It was a lady in her mid-40s. She had an elective surgery in Winston-Salem. Anesthesia went bad, and she had some significant brain issues, and she couldn't sleep, and that's what we had to do for her. So there's a number of things out on the market. There is, they're doing the melatonin, 180 milligrams. I'm finding that helps me sleep a whole lot better. I stay asleep a lot longer. I do a lot better. Make sure your room is good and cool. Not cold, but cool, not hot. They have a new bed that, instead of using an alarm clock, a bed that will heat up. And when it gets hot, the bed gets hot, it wakes you up. And so have a cool room, not a hot room, and that will keep you asleep longer. But yet your covers, you don't want too heavy that it bothers you, and that can wake you up. Copaiba. I have people using Copaiba, and that's helping them stay asleep through the night. So you just need to keep working on it and see what might work for you. Any other questions? Oh, there's a question. Oh, then over here.
I have dry mouth, and so that causes me to lose teeth. I did an over-the-counter pill that helps with the dry mouth, but I just read about 2 days ago that it causes, one of the side effects is a heart attacks. So I stopped taking it. Is there anything that can help with the dry mouth?
There is. One is do this 4 times every 30 minutes. That can help. And there are some herbs, but I don't remember which herbs they are. I'd have to relook. But there are some herbs that help with dry mouth. But water's the biggest thing, is make sure you're drinking adequate water. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So about a year ago this time, I ended up in the ICU for, well, I was in St. Mary's for 10 days, but ICU for like 7.5 with upper respiratory failure. And they could never tell me why I had that, but in that process, the way the doctor put it was they put me on a truckload of prednisone to shut my immune system off, because my immune system was what was trying to kill me. Got out of that, came home. My daughter, who was a nurse, came down from Alaska and was keeping an eye on her dad, and my left foot went like it belonged on a corpse. And so we went back in again, and they ended up life flighting me to Tri-Cities, and found out that I had an 80% blockage in my knee, or in my hip, 100% blockage in my knee, and they had no idea. So they did surgery, and they got that all fixed up. But in the process, they've told me I now have to stay on Eliquis the rest of my life. I do have a factor 2 apparently on one side of my parents, neither one which are alive, doesn't matter. But between the prednisone, the factor 2, I don't know that I was on any blood thinners. I actually don't think I was when I was in the ICU, but now they're saying I need to be on Eliquis the rest of my life and baby aspirin.
As a preventative.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a current problem right now because they fix that through surgery. They surgically fix
that.
But
should I, my question that I have now that I'm on Eliquis and baby aspirin though, is now if I decide to do, like say I started doing some, well, if I do vitamin E, mushroom, there's Rise, it's a company that does a mixture of different mushrooms and stuff. That apparently also causes blood thinning. They can't tell me, I'm told that they can't really tell me that my blood is thin enough or not. And I'm just kind of curious on what do I do with, it's just kind of like take it, and it's like, yeah, how do I establish that this is the right amount? Well, we really can't tell you.
They're doing it as a prevention, it sounds like.
Yes.
And that makes sense from what they're doing. So can you use something that's an anticoagulant that's natural?
Yeah.
And there is. Again, I learned this from Dr. Agatha. Do y'all miss her? I significantly miss her. Such a tremendous friend and a humble person. She was just so humble. So she taught me about the nattokinase. The nattokinase is a great tool. Dr. Phil Collins would use 6 ounces of Concord grape juice 3 times a day. And Dr. Agatha would also use garlic. Garlic is a great anticoagulant. Now, allicin is not as much of an anticoagulant because it's just the allicin. It doesn't have all the other components in the garlic that is an anticoagulant. You get some anticoagulation with allicin, but not as much, so you don't have to be as worried about doing it pre and post surgery, where you do with a whole garlic. But the nattokinase, or nattokinase, is probably the most aggressive that I've found. But also a cardiologist will tell you that another one of the major anticoagulants is adequate hydration. Water is so important. The challenge is at nighttime, because they usually want you to drink water before going to bed. Well, that can cause a problem with men with prostate issues or having to get up, and you do need your sleep. And so that can be an issue where you choose sleep versus the risk of, coagulation.
Since you brought talking about the garlic, when you buy garlic in the store that's minced, as opposed, does that lose? Because when garlic is heated, it loses its, I guess that's what I'm told, a lot of its components that is really good for you. So if you buy like minced garlic in the store, is that like heated to that point or not?
Mince being chopped up or something?
Yeah, where it's jarred, where it's been...
yes. A couple things. If it's jarred, it's been cooked, like canning.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's been chopped up. And so you have some loss there also, where you've chopped it up. So the best thing I found, I had a physician one time, he wanted every one of his patients to take 4 cloves of garlic every meal when we only did breakfast and dinner. That worked one meal. And actually didn't even fully work one meal. And so sometimes you got to negotiate. And so if you steam it right before you eat for, say, a minute, no more than 2, we found good success by just immediately eating those 4 cloves of garlic. And the steaming kind of takes some of that hot off of it.
What about, don't you say cayenne pepper? For thinning the blood, did you say that?
Oh, yeah. You can use cayenne pepper, and you also use cayenne pepper as a vasodilator. I have folks that find cayenne pepper extract works better than nitroglycerin. Yeah.
And you can take chlorophyll pills when you eat garlic.
True. Or just drink the chlorophyll. Any other question? Yes, here we go. It's got one here.
Just curious, I've got problems with carpal tunnel. Is there anything we can do with that other than surgery? I don't want to go there yet. So.
Yes. Do y'all remember McEnroe? The guy who had a temper on the tennis court? A number of years ago, I went to New York City, and I took a course by his personal trainer, or therapist, by his personal therapist. And he taught us that many times carpal tunnel, the reason the surgery doesn't work is the issue is not here. The issue is usually up in here, here, or up in here. And he said because it gets so tight up in here, it then can affect here. So I would go to a good PT. Well, here's why I say this. When I was 17, I got sciatica. I picked up ice chest wrong, and I got sciatica. Every PT I hired, and I worked in healthcare administration, they moved me all over the place because I went in and I fixed problems. And so I had an opportunity to be around a lot of physical therapists over the years, over that 20 years. And every time I got me either went to a new place or hired a new physical therapist, I would say, fix my sciatica. Not one of them could fix it. None of them. And finally, there was this fella, he was an old guy. He was so old he'd been a Hitler Youth. And his mama said, something's going on here, and they escaped Germany. He came to America, and he went to a place called Battle Creek, Michigan. And he took hydrotherapy and massage therapy at Battle Creek. And then he went to Loma Linda, and he got his PT. One day, he came to my office. I was in the office, and he said, Walt, I got some extra time in therapy. He didn't want to offend me. He said, well, I got some extra time. And he just came and worked for him. He was retired, and he'd had all those years working as a PT and had his own practice. And he said, come by the therapy room. He said, see if I can help you with anything. I said, oh, I'm okay. He goes, no, come on by. He could tell my gait every once in a while. And so I went on down there, and 5 treatments. The sciatica has been gone now for 22 years. And he did 4 different modalities, each of those 5 days. And so when I say sometimes you have to go check, don't try just 1 or 2, try more. Or maybe try a massage therapist and see. And it may be right here.
Well, See, when I first started going, I thought it was up in here. I was almost convinced of it. And I actually went to a doctor who he did the nerve, tested the whole thing, and oh yeah, you've got carpal tunnel, but I can't get away from the fact that I lay down at night and it's way worse. If I set up, it's not bothering me. If I put my hand down like this, it goes away. And if I roll around and when I get out of bed at night, I'll do this, and it goes away. But I didn't change the position of my hand. So this is what I'm changing, and this is where I'm seeing the results. So
yes,
I'm still convinced it's more in my
So
spine.
I would look at somebody and ask them, what success do you have in addressing carpal tunnel? And see if there's someone out there. Again, it could be PT, it could be massage therapy, could be chiropractic. All three of those professions can help with carpal tunnel. Some people will use, I had a guy who had it, and he just used aloe vera gel multiple times a day. It plumb went away and didn't come back. He quit using it. So it just depends on the person. There's a question back here.
I have a friend, her husband got carpal tunnel really bad. He was due for surgery, and she said she's a nurse. She knew it started from back here. So she massaged each arm from the back of the neck all the way down the shoulder and all the way down the arm. A really good massage.
Yes.
5 times each arm, because she ended up going through the fingers and massaging each finger, and then starting again and going all the way down real slow. Really good massaging. And I forgot how long she did that, but he never needed the surgery. And I think like over 25 years, he never had any problems at all anymore.
It makes sense, based on what that therapist had told us. He was a very good therapist. All right. You want to come up?
And you all are troopers. It's been a long day. Dr. Cross is the most tired of all of us, but I think we've all had a long day, and it's been a real blessing. Thank you for coming. Tomorrow, please join us at 9 a.m. in the Fellowship Center right over here. Again, he's going to do herbs and poultices and other natural remedies. We'll have a soup and bread luncheon, and then he'll talk about more of these specific diseases and disorders in the afternoon. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Hello, friend. My name is James Ash, and I want to personally thank you for watching our program today. If you would like to see more videos just like this, all you have to do is go to statelineadventmedia.org, and you can watch to your heart's content. And oh, by the way, don't forget to click the like, share, and subscribe buttons on each one of our various platforms. Because you see, my friend, this helps us reach more people with the good news of Jesus' soon return. Ministries like this require large teams of people. You would be amazed if you were to see how many people are required to produce each one of our programs. And if you would like to join with us by becoming a ministry partner, you can actually help us reach the unreached with the gospel. All you have to do is go to statelineadventmedia.org/donate, and you can give us a much-needed boost. Most importantly of all, friend, we need your prayers. I assure you that the devil does not like this ministry, and your prayers are what protect and direct what we do here. Once again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.